Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I told you a few hours ago that I was going to be doing this show. I said there was a good chance. I said as long as the kids went down for bed in a somewhat orderly, timely manner, we were going to go for it. And so we're doing it. We're doing it live. We'll do it live. A big potential night. Now, I can't show you necessarily what's going on because of, there's the copyright laws. Now, in fairness, as many of you know, I did kind of beat some of the copyright issues in the past. With some different networks that have flagged content in the past, I won. Now, in theory, I might be able to show you on the screen, but I think it's a little bit more important. Maybe we just enjoy this together as we wait. Now, this is the first time in, I believe, the history of the NHL, certainly in recent history, that the way the draft lottery is being conducted is not by predetermining, behind closed doors where you have all of the picks, all the lottery balls drawn, and then they put the cards of the teams in the envelopes, and then they pull them out to the public where the teams already know. No, this is different. This year, they're going to actually have the lottery balls pop up on the screen, and we are going to see as things unfold. We're going to see, for the first time, the combination come up, and we'll see which teams move up, perhaps which teams move back, move down. A reminder, and we broke this down on a show a little bit earlier today about how teams can potentially move up. The highest you can go, the biggest jump you can make is 10 spots in the NHL Draft Lottery. And so there are teams that technically will be entered into the draft lottery, but they can't get the number one pick. They cannot get the number 2 overall pick, but they do have the ability to still jump. And so teams like Calgary and Vancouver that are 16th and 15th entering the lottery respectively, those teams can move all the way up to number 6 if you're Calgary, number 5 if you're Vancouver, and then there's a drawing period that has to happen. So you can't technically move up to 1 or 2 if you're outside of the top 12, right? 12 you can go up to 2, 11 you can go up to number 1. You can only move up 10 spots. Now, I'm looking to see who's representing the Flyers at the draft lottery right now. It's Danny Briere. Danny's there. Who else do I see on the screen here that's at least like relatively, it looks like a bunch of front office guys. There were questions, I guess, about whether or not you would see a Matvei Michkov. Would they send a player representative to be on camera for the draft lottery? I guess I'm not surprised. Listen, in the NBA, that's a big thing, right? Like one of the big things that we typically see is that they could send a player out. Maybe they send like somebody who's not a front office executive to be there, be present. Now, this is a little bit different. This is not a centralized thing. This is all being done virtually. So you don't have Danny Briere and the rest of the GMs or the rest of the team representatives sitting in a room together, but we are going to watch it all unfold. Again, it's almost like as a kid, let me know in the comments on YouTube where I see people are dropping comments, YouTube, X, and Facebook. Let me know. But there are people who, you might remember this, back in the Jeopardy and the Wheel of Fortune days, maybe you watched it with your parents, you watched it with your grandparents, whomever. This is a thing where you watch the lottery balls come up, and maybe your grandmother, she's sitting there, she's just waiting. She's waiting for that combination of all of her kids' birth dates to come up, and it never happens. But in the case tonight, each and every team will have a combination come up, or at least the top 2 will. Again, they're going to do the draft lottery for the number 1 spot and the number 2 spot. So I'm going to go out to the comments here. And as we're doing wonderful things here on the stream, I have the draft lotteries pulled up on another screen. Now, I believe in theory, if I have the video at a certain size, I can show it. So we might tempt fates tonight on showing it as it's underway. But right now, they're kind of talking about the Calder Trophy finalists, Lane Hutson, Celebrini, Dustin Wolf. Not named a finalist, Matvei Michkov. Are you surprised by that? Probably not. Should you be? Probably not. Did Matvei Michkov deserve to be a finalist for the Calder? I would argue 1,000% yes, he did. But we know about the anti-Russian bias that exists among some of the media, particularly among some of the Canadian media. 63 points as a rookie, apparently not good enough to get Matvei Michkov a finalist spot for the Calder Trophy. But anyway, we're going to go out to the comments here for a little bit as we wait. And right now on TV, they're just talking about the top prospects. And now I mentioned this on the show a little bit earlier, but Schaefer viewed widely as the most NHL-ready player, number one defenseman, potential number one defenseman down the line, unlikely to be ready at the start of the season, unlikely to make a team right out of camp. However, a very good defenseman. And then the number one forward that people seem to be enamored with is Michael Misa, which we'll see if the Flyers are going to have the opportunity to go after him, if they move into the number one or the number two spot. And if not, there are other good forwards that are going to be available, and one that in theory should be able to kind of help move this rebuild along, as we've been talking about for quite a while. The Philadelphia Flyers do not intend on being at the bottom again next year, despite the fact that Gavin McKenna, who looks like the next generational talent, is going to be available at the top of that draft. These Philadelphia Flyers do not seem in any way, shape, or form committed to taking that tank to the bottom again. So right now what they're talking about over on TV is Matthew Schaefer, Michael Misa, and James Higgins as the top three players likely in this draft. I'm going to go over to the comments. Let's have a little bit of fun tonight. I know everybody's nervous. I get that there are nerves in the air. People are worried because it's only a 9.5% chance to get that number one overall pick or a 9.5% chance to get that number two overall pick. But this is how it works. We all knew it. And remember, no matter what happens tonight, let's do this. Put your pinky out, all right? Let's have a little pinky promise as a group, okay? Because we've been talking about this for a while. I swear that I've spent months over on Snow the Goalie talking about this and on this show as well. Pinky promise. We all said that if the Flyers got to that number 4 spot, which would guarantee they could finish no lower than 6th in the draft lottery, we all committed ourselves to believing that we'd still get a very good player at number 6, even if that's where the Flyers fall. Now, again, the highest probability is that the Flyers fall back to number 5. That percentage is around 44%. I can pull the thing up that we had on the show earlier today. But the 44.6% chance of the Flyers moving back to number 5, 20.8% chance of the Flyers falling 2 spots to number 6. But if you want to live in the positive world, which is where I choose to be, 15.4% chance of remaining at number 4. You get your choice of a few of the top 6 guys. You feel pretty good about it. 0.3% chance of moving up to number 3. There'd have to be one of those teams that cannot move up to 1 or move up to 2 that would have to win one of the lotteries that would allow for the Flyers to somehow get into that number 3 spot. And then you have a 9.5% chance of going up to number 1 or going up to number 2. So that's where we're at right now. Okay? That's where we're at right now. And I see people getting upset, and I get it. People are upset because Matvei Michkov wasn't a finalist. So we'll go out to Andrew Fawcett here. How in the hell is Matvei Michkov not a Calder finalist? Because his name is Matvei Michkov, and he's from Russia. If Matvei Mishkov's name were Mathieu Michelin from Quebec, guess what? He'd be a finalist. He might even be the favorite. If Matvei Michkov were playing for the Montreal Canadiens, where the fans have been upset for over a year that they missed out on Michkov, guess what? He would almost certainly have been a Calder finalist. But because there is an anti-Russian bias among the media that choose the finalists for the award, Michkov somehow didn't end up being a finalist, which is quite frankly bullshit. And it is something I'm sure that we'll talk about this week on this show, on Snow the Goalie. But right now over on TV, they are showing, they're preparing, they're taking the balls to the machine. They're going to put everybody's ball into the machine. Now it's weird. All right, so let's see. They're all right, they just dropped in the number 1. I think I should be okay to show this. We're going to do this we're going to give this a shot. We're going to try right now. Let's see if it works. I don't know if it will. I'm going to have to do it with no sound. We're going to keep this at a very small video because this is a reaction, and this is not meant to take the steam out of whatever the ESPN has going on. But they are dropping the balls in right now. There they are. They're dropping the balls, folks, aren't they? They have their balls dropping right now on the TV, on the screen. So they're going to put together the combination. Whatever combination comes out, that is going to be the one that ultimately determines who the number 1 pick, the number 2 pick is. All right, so we're going to pull this. We're going to take this down for now. So again, they're dropping the balls into the machine. Now, as we have also found out, it all comes down to Stephen here. Russ likes when his balls drop. We love the balls dropping, don't we, folks? The New York ball. Let's see. Now, Butcher Gross is talking about who knows what. All right, so the first draw is about to happen. Now, They're saying 30 seconds until the next ball happens. So, all right, here we go. They're going to, the Pennsylvania Lottery. All right. So I don't know why they're going to just have it juggle for 30 seconds before they pull one out. All right, we're going to take this back down for a second. We're just going, we have to do this in very small spurts. Jay Toxic says, the big, beautiful balls, they are big, they are beautiful. They have numbers on them, folks, don't they? Andrew Fawcett says, the balls are bouncing. Greg Bondarenko asking over here, who are the Calder finalists? Hudson, Celebrini, and what's his nuts, the goalie, whose name's already escaped me because he wasn't even mentioned. So the first ball to come up is, I don't know, number 7. All right, so we're doing the combination. That changed the odds. Right now, the Flyers have moved up to a 12.5% chance. Oh, boy. 12.9. Now, San Jose's chances have also gotten better. I like this. This is actually okay. I like seeing the percentages change as we're going. This is pretty cool. All right, NHL, you might have actually done something right for once. Now we all get the butterflies in the belly. Because instead of just having to watch the cards come up, we get to see in real time as the team's percentage chances are moving, okay? So they're about to pull another ball. Another ball is coming out. All right, 3, 2, 1, another ball. Now, I don't know what the combinations are. I don't think they have the combinations posted anywhere. That would actually have been pretty cool. Number 11, 7-Eleven. Anybody like 7-Eleven? Let's see what it does. The Flyers had a 12.9% chance after the first draw. They have now moved down, so they're at a 10.6% chance. San Jose's chance of getting the number 1 overall pick has improved. We have Detroit, Columbus, Utah, Vancouver, and Calgary are now all out of it. The Flyers, as currently constituted, would not, I don't know, their chance 10.6%. It's still higher than it was before the draft lottery. Okay. We're gonna take this back down a second. We're gonna play the game. We're gonna play the game over on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Got to be careful. Now, they've also removed certain GMs from being on the screen, so we're down to a smaller number. Now, let's everybody keep their fingers crossed. The Flyers started at 9.5%. They went up to 12.5%. They went down to 10.6%. The next number coming up is number 12. Okay. Let's see what it did to the Flyers' chance of moving. The Flyers remain in at 18.2%, which matches. So we've got Chicago, the Flyers, Pittsburgh, and the Islanders, all with an equal 18.2% chance. Oh, boy. Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. What does that mean? So the Flyers need a 4 or a 6 to win the draft lottery. A 4 or a 6. All right, we're going to take this down. Flyers need a 4 or a 6. A 4 or a 6. Now, a 9 or a 14, Chicago wins. A 1 or a 10, Pittsburgh gets it. So if you see a 1 or a 10, the Penguins will somehow have gamed the system. They're going to commercial break. So we need a 4 or a 6, and the Flyers win the draft lottery. Now, again, I believe they're doing the number 1 overall pick first, and then the second one, I don't know. Are they going to, I guess they redraw for the second pick? So 4 or a 6, and your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers could win the draft lottery. This is significantly more interesting than watching them pull the teams out of the cards. And now they have a 2-minute and 46-second countdown, I guess, for the commercials, and we're watching the ball spinning. All right, let me know in the comments what you think, because this is actually pretty freaking crazy, and I kind of like it. All right, Steven says, there's small balls. J Toxic 49, cool Van shoes, Bucci. Oh, he hates ESPN. Andrew Foster says we need a spokesmodel. Let's see. Dustin Wolf was the other guy. Okay. J Toxic thinks Pittsburgh is going to get it. AJ, our resident Rangers fan, probably feeling very sad right now that his Rangers are not going to win the draft lottery. Listen, I'm very interested to see where this goes. But the Flyers have equal odds with 3 other teams at 18.2% chance of potentially winning the draft lottery. Now, Keep in mind, going into this, they had a 9.5% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick or a 9.5% chance of getting the number 2 overall pick. And again, to my belief, this is for the number 1 overall pick. After this is done, they're going to have to do a second drawing for the number 2 overall pick, and then we're going to see where the chips end up falling. So this is kind of chaotic, and in a beautiful way, you feel good about the fact that the Flyers, a 4 or a 6 gets it done, and at the same time, if you don't win, we have to go through the chaos and the disorder and the indigestion of doing this one more time and finding out where you slide to. So obviously the goal here is win the draft lottery, feel good, don't have to worry about the second part of this. If it doesn't work out, second drawing happens, and then we have the agita. Do the Flyers remain at 4? Do they fall to 5? Do they fall to 6? You know, I thought this felt really good. I liked it, and now I'm kind of going back and forth in my head. And now I don't know what to think. Paul McLaughlin thinks 4. Anthony Gonzalez says, if we win with a 6. All right, let me know in the comments. The Flyers need a 4 or a 6 to win the draft lottery. Let me know what number, if the Flyers are going to win the draft lottery, are they going to win it with a 4? Or are they going to win it with a 6? Let me know in the comments. Woof. Okay. Josh White says 4. Greg Bondarenko asks, what pick does Colorado give us? Do we know? We do not know yet. That pick can fluctuate. What we do know is obviously it's not going to be one of the last picks in the draft just by virtue of the fact that they are now out of the playoffs. There are some other teams that can have an impact on where that Colorado pick finishes. Greg Bondarenko says a 6 would win it. Landros says 6 for Bundy. Oh, I love that. All right. It all comes down to this, friends. The final ball is going to be drawn. If it's a 4 or a 6, the Flyers get it. If it's a 1 or a 10, it goes to Pittsburgh. I don't remember. I think San Jose needs an 8. All right, here we go. Pittsburgh needs a 1 or a 10. The Islanders need a 5 or a 13. San Jose needs an 8. Chicago needs a 9 or a 14. Seattle needs a 3. Buffalo needs a 2. And it all comes down to this. If you're a Flyers fan, you have a chance at a potential number 1 defenseman in Schaefer. You could potentially get Michael Misa if you decide that center is your number 1 priority. You could take him number 1 overall. And again, no matter what happens here, they're going to have to do a redrawing or a second drawing for the number 2 overall pick. And now people, I'm sure, are going to try, as these balls are bouncing, to get a real good look on what the number is going to be. I am legitimately worried right now. I'm not going to look at the comments because I know that I typically am behind because I'm on YouTube TV. The number is up. It is a 13. That is not the Flyers. That is also not Pittsburgh. Number 13 is also not San Jose, who had the best odds. The number who had 13? 13 was... I don't know who 13 was. Was that Chicago? There were 4 teams that had an 18.2% chance of being the number 1 overall pick. The Flyers are not that team. So that team is... I didn't keep track of it. Here we go. Hold on. All right, so the Islanders. Jesus. So the Islanders are going to get the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So they moved up 9 spots. 9 spots. Hold on a second. Remind me. In the show that we did earlier, didn't the Islanders jump to number 1? Didn't they move up 8 spots, or they moved up to number 2? Ugh. So the Islanders jump, which means that the Flyers either have to get the number 2 overall pick, or they're going to move down to either 5 or to 6. And now it all comes down to the second drawing. Jeez Louise. Yeah, so this is going, here we go, CBS gone fishing. Fucking Islanders, boo. Jay Toxic, fuck the Isles. We got a WTF. Islanders, geez, holy crap. What in the fresh is, like, this is not good. I don't like this. So, not ideal. Now, I see this from Landros saying 2 or 6 now. That is not necessarily the case. You could move down to 5. 5 could happen. Because if one of the teams that were above you in the original draft order, if a San Jose gets this pick, it doesn't shift anything. The teams that were above you are going to remain above you. If a team from below the Flyers jump the Flyers, then it's the number 6 pick. So they're doing the drawing right now. The Islanders are thrilled. We don't care. So again, the best case scenario here for the Flyers obviously is number 2. The secondary case is number 5. If a team from below them jump them, then you're looking at the number 6 overall pick. And again, I repeat the thing that I have said for months. This is your insurance policy. Getting that number 4 spot in the draft lottery is the thing that assures that you get one of those players from the top tier. Or if you think Schaefer is the top tier, or Schaefer and Misa, then from the second tier up to the 6th pick. So, wild. Andrew Fawcett says the team without a GM gets the number 1 pick. Awesome. Lee Carrasso says not Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh still has a chance at the number 2 pick. So, the fact that the Islanders got it is disgusting. I just, like, why? Why? All right, so they just did 1, 5. I don't see if they have the percentages up for the number 2 overall pick. They don't right now. I assume that they're going to update. They're going to give us a board to look at when the 3rd ball is drawn, and then probably go to commercial and have us hang on to every potential bad intrusive thought we have until 7:30. So let's see. They just pulled the number 12. So 1, 5, 12. I don't know who has Yahtzee. 1, 5, 12. They should be showing the board. They are not showing the board. You know, they might not go to 7:30 because whoever ends up getting this pick, they're going to probably want to talk to that GM before they end the telecast. So, again, we are looking at either the Flyers win this, they move up to number 2. A team that was above them, like a San Jose or a Chicago or a Nashville, gets this pick. The Flyers pick at number 5, or a team from below the Flyers jump them, and then the Flyers would fall to number 6. So as of right up, the Flyers are out. Flyers are out apparently. So they are going to finish 6th. That's it. It is over. The Flyers are going to pick 6th in this draft. That is it. It is over. So there you go. Flyers are going to pick 6th in this draft. A draft where they came in with the 4th best odds. San Jose should, in theory, get this. Chicago has 1 shot. Nashville has 2 shots. Boston 3. Utah, Calgary. This is about as bad. Now, if Utah or Calgary get it, I think the Flyers would be, let me think, they could move up to, if it's Calgary and they get number 6, I don't know. I'm now over it. All right, let's see. We're going to see. If Boston gets this pick, if Boston ends up getting it after their egregious tanking at the end of the season, that would be something. Chris Fried also notes that when I did Tankathon, it had them finishing 6th. So that is true. Didi Megadoodoo says, so much for losing on purpose. 10 gets the first pick. It rarely happens. Let's see. Who got it? Number 3. Who had number 3? I don't know. 3 was who? I don't know what we're tabulating. They had it before. So they're saying it was a Hail Mary. So who was it? Second pick is fourth overall selection. Utah. So Utah gets number 2. So that means San Jose, Chicago. San Jose is number 2. Chicago, I guess, gets number 3. Nashville gets number... Hold on. They just... Ugh. Guys, this is dog doo-doo. Now, here, let me try to find the positive spin. The Islanders getting the number 1 overall pick. There is no positive spin. That is disgusting. It is gross. The only good thing about Utah moving up to 4 is that it's not in your division, I guess, if you want to look for a positive. But this is brutal. So, okay, Chicago gets number 3. Nashville gets number 5. Flyers get number 6. All right, so if you're trying to figure out what's happening and how it happened and all that, Utah did not have the ability to move up to number 2 because of their pre-draft lottery standing. So Utah was so far down, the best they could do was move up 10 spots, which they did. And that locked them in at number 4, which means there was no team that they couldn't move up to number 2. So they got to number 4, which means San Jose, by virtue of their finishing at the end of the season, they are number 2. And then I don't know why they didn't fill it in, but Chicago then should be number 3, Utah number 4. It'll be Nashville at number 5. The Flyers will draft at number 6. So you end up in a situation where it is not ideal at all, but it still gets you in that top tier or that second tier before the bottom falls out. In theory, the Flyers could get a very good player at number 6. They are certainly not going to be getting Michael Misa. They are certainly not going to be getting Matthew Schaefer. So there goes your 1C and your 1D, at least in terms of the 2 best players at those positions. You're going to have some combination. I mean, let's see. I mean, if we look at it from the perspective of where a bunch of people had them. Actually, you know what? I saved the draft order from earlier today. Hold on. Let's go over here. This is what happened earlier today when I ran the simulation. The Islanders jumped up to number 2. What ended up happening in reality is the Islanders went all the way up to number 1. And it also had Seattle jumping high. Instead, we saw Utah move from 14 to 4. And so here we are. Let's see. Did they update this, I assume? Yes. So the Islanders moved up 9 spots. San Jose goes down 1. Chicago goes down 1. Utah moves up 10. Nashville moves down 2. The Flyers move down 2. Like we talked about earlier on the show, earlier today, there was a very good chance the Flyers could move down 2 spots. Does it suck? Indeed it does. What's the best way to put this? It's not great, but there's still a chance of getting a really good player. Now, I will automatically refute one of the points that I can already hear some of the people that I've had to argue with all year. There are going to be people who are going to say, this just proves that losing doesn't matter because you're going to see teams jump. And I will simply point out that this is quite the anomaly. I cannot recall the last time that 2 teams moved up 9 or more spots in a draft lottery. So that is incredibly rare. And the other thing I'll point out is, so San Jose tanked this year. San Jose was absolute dog shit this year. Where did San Jose move? Oh no, from 1 to 2, which means that they are still probably going to end up with Michael Misa out of all of this. Chicago actively tanked. Oh no, they moved down 1 spot. They will still get a very, very good player at number 3. Neither of them are going to pick number 1 overall. They're not missing out on a Gavin McKenna. They are not missing out on a Connor McDavid, a Sidney Crosby, an Alex Ovechkin. They're missing out on a very good player, a probable number 1 defenseman to be in Matthew Schaefer. But Chicago now is going to probably have their choice of Porter Martone, James Higgins, Anton Frandl. I don't imagine they're going to go after like a Denoyer, an Eklund, or a McQueen at 3. But like, this doesn't change anything. This is, once again, yeah, you don't necessarily get guaranteed one of the top spots in the draft, but San Jose still gets a top 2. Chicago still gets a top 3. Your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers, they won some games late. It doesn't really change that much. If you really want to be super, super pissed off with the new coach bump and the wins that the Flyers picked up, some of those points they picked up late in the season, and you want to make the argument that they should have been where Nashville was, and now instead of picking 5, they're picking 6, you can. I think that you'd be out of your mind. Again, go back to the season. You had no chance of catching Chicago or San Jose. It wasn't going to happen. And in fact, and in fairness, the best that the Flyers could have hoped to get was number 4. And they did, and they're still going to finish in that top tier. And now it comes down to this. Are the Flyers going to be able to figure out who the best player is at 6? Are we going to find the potential gem, the guy who falls? Is there going to be a player that's going to fall? Misa's not going to fall. Could a Higgins fall to you at number 6? And if he does, you've gotten a hell of a lot of value. But this is pretty rough. Now, I have to go into it. Like, I'm trying to figure out what some of these people in the comments are saying, but I love everyone. And so we'll go out to the comments here really quickly because it's important. All right, so JToxic49 says fucking torts. I don't know. It wouldn't have changed much. Let's see. Andrew Fawcett says, I'm okay with that, I guess. Landros2 says, we are 6. CBS Gone Fishing over on X says, boo. Also hates Bettman. Dersh says, time to bad luck Brian this draft. Landros2 says, there's nothing good. Chris Freed says that the way that they did it with the lottery balls, the NFL is going to take this idea and turn it into an hour show that attracts 50 million viewers. I can't believe that they no one's ever done this before. Laboom60, very upset, says this is so brutal. What a waste of a season. I disagree, but okay. At the Helm Outdoors says Flyers got screwed. Again, you go percentages. You go pre-draft percentages. This was one of the most likely outcomes. This should not come as a surprise. Listen, if this came as a surprise to you, you need to go to the subscribe button on this channel, and you need to make sure that you are listening to the things that I say throughout the season, and I'm going to guide you in the right direction. This should not come as a total shock. We talked about every potential outcome. We talked about every potential percentage chance of the Flyers moving up to 1 or 2, the 0.3% chance to get number 3, where they could have finished dead even at number 4, moving down to 5, moving down to 6. None of this should come as a shock. It can be disappointing, but they're still going to end up with a player that is in that second tier, that top-ish tier. If Schaefer is in a tier of his own and there's a second tier that is number 2 through number 6, guess what? They're going to get one of those players. Joe Papel says, the luck of landing the second pick and ending up with Patrick cost Flyers fans 10 years of misery. Andrew Fawcett agrees with that. Landros2 says, typical Flyers luck, but honestly, the only time we won the lottery, we drafted Nolan Patrick, so there's that. Laboom is sick to his stomach. Sorry, Laboom. I know. Let's see. Lawrence Fine says, I didn't understand any of that. NHL is a joke. I don't know what there isn't. Okay, so Lawrence, or anybody who's confused by what happened with the lottery balls, what's the nice way to, okay. So you are given, at the end of the season, a percentage chance of getting the number 1 overall pick. They have however many combinations. Is it 100 combinations? I don't know. And then you get that many combinations within the draft lottery, right? Just like winning the Pennsylvania lottery. Never before have they shown the lottery balls coming up on TV. They typically do that in a closed room. They determine the draft order. They put the team crests in the cards, and then Bettman or whoever comes out, and they open the cards and they lift them up because the order has already been determined. What you got to see here tonight is what that closed room typically looks like. Now, I think another level to this would have been the NHL puts together a website that has all of the combinations that the teams have been assigned, and then we can all stagger, we can all kind of like squint at them. Oh, 1-7. All right, 1-7-12. All right, we're in good shape. Now, I do like the fact that they had the big board and we knew number 4 or number 6. If that came up, that was going to be the Flyers got the number 1 overall pick. It didn't happen. I don't like that we didn't get to see what the numbers would have been for the Flyers prior to the 4th ball coming up. We did see that they were eliminated. Yeah, all right. Josh White says, Roger McQueen, you are a Philadelphia Flyer. I don't know if that'll happen, and it sounds like there are more and more people believing that McQueen's back injury is going to potentially cause him to fall further, which leads me to something very, very interesting that we'll talk about here in a second. Trevston93 says, tankers in shambles. Should not be. Again, what is it exactly about tanking or about having a team finish somewhere in that top tier that isn't resonating with people, right? If you had, gone the season and you finished at let's say number 11, guess what? You'd have been the Rangers, and guess where you would have finished? 12th. You would have finished 12th in the draft order. It's right here, okay? It's not very complicated. The Flyers, by virtue of finishing with the 4th worst record in hockey, yes, they moved down, but they still get to draft in this top tier. San Jose and Chicago tanked all year. They're not missing out on a generational talent at number 1, and they're still going to finish with either the 2nd or 3rd potentially best player in the draft if their scouts are correct. This does nothing. The only thing this does is show that there can be anomalies like Utah moving up 10 spots and the Islanders moving up 9 spots. Again, if we go back in history, I have not done it. I did not do this ahead of time to look at how many spots teams typically move up in a draft lottery. This seems either unprecedented or pretty damn uncommon. Dusty Redmond says, first time the lottery is live and you see teams jump like this. So rigged in the past. Could be. So, I mean, like, all right, let's play that one out. Play out what Dusty Redmond is saying. That this is the first time that we can remember seeing two teams jump that far. It then maybe gives a little bit of credence to the idea that the league was rigging which teams ended up with the number one overall pick. Listen, the conspiracies are going to fly no matter what, right? I love this, all right? I don't necessarily love that the Flyers fell 2 spots, but I do love the idea here that we all got to find out together what the lottery combo was. And we did for a little bit there get to all kind of root on 4, 6, okay? Imagine the gut punch. Okay, go back to the prior version of how they did the draft lottery. Imagine the gut punch if they would have gone from 16 all the way up, and then we would have seen, oh shit, Utah jumped. Oh, we know that they're going to be one of the top 2 teams. Then you're already going, all right, the Flyers are going to finish 5 or 6. And then by the time you get to the Islanders, we would have known, oh, shit, they're going to finish 6th. Instead, we got to, I don't know, live in a little bit of happy delusion for a bit. Greg Bondarenko says, it seems like you get penalized for tanking. Again, I don't know how you can have that view, though, because San Jose and Chicago tanked, and they're picking 2 and 3. Nashville, I don't think, really tanked. Nashville just had a season from hell. The Flyers didn't really tank either. If they really wanted to be somewhere even further down, maybe flipped with Nashville, they would have kept Torts, although the end of the Torts tenure and some of the things that have been put out there would kind of indicate you could not have kept Torts here. I don't know if it would have changed anything. Let's see. Trevston93 with a good question. Could Hagen's drop? Again, there are some pundits, there are some draft experts who think there is a legitimate chance that Hagen's could fall to number 6. There were some that believe he might even fall to 7 or 8. Roger McQueen is the name that is going to be that's the one to watch, okay? Because McQueen is 6'5" and plays center and has a back injury. And I know that it scares people. But could there be a scenario? If you're the Flyers at number 6, you're not taking McQueen. Probably. Unlikely. But if teams are really scared off by the medical report, right? If you're going to be a team that doesn't get to draft number 1 or get to draft number 2, right? Like the Flyers. Lutsenko might be a good player. We don't know. They didn't get to draft high in that draft because Torts he raises your floor, prevents you from drafting in the bottom 3, bottom 4, or having the chance to draft in the top 6, we'll call it. Probably cost you a chance to go after a guy like an Ivan Demidov. I'm going to keep saying it from now until the end of time. Lutsenko might end up being a good player. We don't know. They didn't take Zeev. Zeev probably, Buium could have been a very good defenseman for this team. It doesn't matter. We're not going to relitigate that, even though it kind of feels a little bit like the Cam York over Cole Caulfield thing all over again. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe Jet Lutsenko is going to be incredible, and maybe, I don't know. All of this is to say, if you're not going to get to pick 1 or 2, at some point you have to put all the chips in. The Flyers are going to have this Colorado pick that is going to be somewhere in the high 20s, not the bottom of the draft, likely in the higher part of the 20s. Now, there's no team that's going to trade from, like, let's say number 9 down to 20. There's nobody's going to trade from number 12 down to 21 or 22. But could the Flyers get really crafty on draft day? If Roger McQueen falls to 15, right? If he falls to 15, which is Vancouver, could the Flyers potentially work out a deal with Vancouver to send them the Colorado pick, which let's call it 23 or 24? Could they send 24, whatever the Edmonton pick is, probably somewhere in the later 20s, call it 28. So 24, 28, their first round pick next year, and maybe a roster player. Does Vancouver get excited about a young defenseman like Cam York? Is that enough for them to trade back 8 spots? I would say probably not. But then again, first-round draft capital is first-round draft capital. Is there another player on this team that Vancouver is interested in? Those are the kind of conversations we're going to have. If Roger McQueen falls beyond 15, say McQueen falls to, 18 or 19, and the Flyers have that Colorado pick at 22, can you make a move to get a falling McQueen? To me, whichever team, if McQueen falls into the teens or somehow falls into the 20s, the team that is willing to make a move and snag him later in the first round, that's the kind of big balls move that potentially takes you from being a good playoff team to potentially being a team that, despite not getting to pick one or two, made the move when it mattered and went and got a guy who can become a 1C. I get that the back injury is a significant concern. I understand. But he's a 6'5" center. And there are people talking about him potentially falling in the first round. If I'm Danny Briere and I'm evaluating what you can get at 20, say 22, 23, whatever the Colorado pick is, and say 27 or 28, wherever the Oilers pick ends up. If I'm looking at the value of 23, the value of 28, I'm looking at my pick next year, knowing full well that the Flyers intend on making the playoffs next year and doing enough to this lineup to make the playoffs next year. If you're looking at it from that perspective, do you say, I'm willing to move 23, 28, and I don't know, 17, 18 next year for a falling Roger McQueen? Does that make sense? If it works out, and if the medical report you get is actually a good one, or you believe that he's going to be healthy, that's the kind of move that fundamentally changes an organization's trajectory. Now, it's also possible that there's a team that is in the top 10 that says, you know what, we're going to take a chance. I could see the back injury being a thing that scares teams away from him. I do. I could see it happening. Let's see. Dersh says, let's temper expectations here and set the good news at we'll get a player and only 31 other teams are in the company on draft night. Let's see. Sloppy over on X says, trade all the picks in Mishkov for a 7th round pick. We get it as a joke. Matthew Stevens says, Denoye. Denoye should not be the pick at number 6. Listen, somebody between now and the draft happening will have to knock my socks off with rationale behind Denoye being the pick at number 6. There have been some things that the Flyers maybe were interested, but I don't know. Douglas DeRosa. Hello, welcome. I don't think I've seen this name before. Douglas, thanks for finding the channel. Do me a favor, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Asks, will this team ever have any good luck, or are we always going to be doomed? I don't know. I get it. It sucks. We all hoped they were going to move up to 1 or move up to 2. We all knew that this was a very likely outcome. It happens. It stinks. We did not get the karmic payoff for Nolan Patrick and for James Van Riemsdyk. Ryan Reese says, I'm sick of being a Flyers fan. Ryan, it's going to get better next year. I need people to just take a deep breath with me, okay? Who typically on Snow the Goalie has been the most negative about the team for the last 7 or 8 years? This guy. Who's the one who's always kind of poo-pooed the idea of the Chuck Fletcher Band-Aid plans and the Ron Hextall taking Herman Rubtsov? This guy. And yet, here I am saying I'm very confident that this front office is going to figure out a way to get this roster in a place to make the playoffs next year. And whether it's Ferschweiler as the coach, whether it's Bradshaw coming back, if Bradshaw's the associate head coach, if he's the actual head coach, I'm pretty confident in this team making the playoffs. Rick Tocchet's name continues to come up. There's also the possibility that he goes elsewhere or that he goes back to TV. I think whoever ends up getting hired here is going to be a competent coach, and this team is going to be good enough to get to the playoffs. And they are going to address goalie. I think that's going to be their number one priority this offseason. They are going to look to get a goalie because they know that some combination of Sam Ersson and Ivan Fedotov or Sam Ersson and Alexei Kolosov is not going to get it done. And they also feel pretty good about Bjarnason and Zavragin in the system, though those guys will not be on the team next year unless something catastrophic happens or unless somehow one of those guys just makes it, goes from, or just becomes undeniable. Andrew Fawcett says, if it was Fletcher or Hextall running it, I would be worried. And thankfully they're not. Ryan Reese says, hate my life. Please don't hate your life, Ryan. It's going to be okay. Matthew Stevens says, I just want to stick my head in the sand. Don't do that. Don't do that. I don't understand sticking a head in the sand, okay? The sand gets in there, then it's crunchy. Is there a worse feeling than when you were a kid going to the beach? Your mom packs a sandwich. She doesn't put it in a little baggie. She wraps it up in cellophane. You get excited. You reach into the lunchbox. Your sandwich falls into the sand. Your mom's like, oh, it's okay. She dusts it off, but she's actually probably pushing more sand into the sandwich. You unwrap it. You go to take a bite, and you get the crunchiest crunch of your life. Don't put your head in the sand. It's just constant. It's just constant crunching. You don't want that. PBNJ over on YouTube says the Flyers are cooked. PBNJ, like the video, share the video, subscribe. Thank you. At the Helm Outdoor says, please don't draft McQueen. I don't think they will at 6, but I'm very much invested if he falls in the draft. KW1323 says, sucks to fall 2 spots, but 6 isn't the end of the world. At least both Boston and Pittsburgh didn't jump us. There's a positive. If you want a positive to come out of the draft lottery, yeah, we're not thrilled that the Islanders got the number 1 pick. Yeah, we're not thrilled that Utah jumped 10 spots. But at least the Penguins and at least the very late tanking Bruins did not get rewarded and did not end up with Matthew Schaefer or Michael Misa. D.D. Skinner says, familiar feelings of getting screwed. I get it. Anthony Gonzalez says, definitely not what I meant, but at least I had the number 6 right. I don't remember what I somehow misinterpreted something Anthony said before. We're so far gone, I don't even remember. Lee Carrassa says, could trade up to number 4 if they want a certain player at that pick. Okay, let's play this one out. Utah. Because Utah didn't think they would be in that position, could Utah get frisky? I wouldn't rule it out. You don't see a lot of picks get traded in the top 5, but because Utah didn't expect to be there, I don't know. That is interesting. That is interesting. Does a team that moved up that much look at it as house money that they're going to end up with one of those top players? And if let's say a Frondel's there at number 4, could the Flyers trade 6 and one of the other first-round picks and get Utah to move back? Maybe. That's actually, you know what? Lee Carrasso here with a great idea. We're going to give a round of applause and some stick taps on the table to Lee. I don't hate that idea. I think that there's actually something to it. If you're Utah, not only did you move up, imagine if you go from expecting to pick around number 14 and instead you get to pick at number 6 and number 22. Or 6 and, say, 28 if it's the Oilers pick. I don't know. Do you take that? 2 first-round picks. I don't know. Does anybody still have access to the Chuck Fletcher trade app? That's one thing that we should all be wondering coming out of the draft lottery tonight. Does anybody still have access to Chuck Fletcher's trade app? Remember, trade value, guys. There's an app for that. You got booed. Matthew Stevens says, I hate to know how close we got at the end. Yeah, like when we saw the 4 or the 6 and that they had an 18.2% chance along with 3 other teams. I know, that part does kind of hurt. TC over on YouTube says, Denoya, you are a Philadelphia Flyer. Again, it's possible, don't know. Henry W. Don't recognize Henry W. here. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Says Flyers will fuck it up. They'll tape a 25th ranked player. Oh, they'll take a 25th ranked player at 6. No, they won't. Sloppy says, never a shock because it's typical Flyers luck. KW1323 says, finishing as bad as possible was key to making the 2 spot fall hurt as little as possible. That is correct. That is the right way to look at it. The reason that you wanted to finish in the top 4 is for this moment exactly. Imagine being Boston right now. Boston actively tried to tank at the end of the year. They're going to pick number 7. They are technically out of what many people believe to be that tier of the top 6 players. Eric H. says, should have tanked better. The only way you could have done it, again, it would have been to keep Torts, and you could not have kept Torts. Let's see. Andrew Foster says, what we know, Flyers will draft a player. Who? We don't know. This is good insight from Andrew. Jay Toxic says, how many firsts do they have this year? The Flyers have 3 first-round picks and 4 second-round picks. The likelihood of the Flyers using all 3 of those first-round picks this year, almost 0. I don't see a scenario where it happens. I won't be surprised. Listen, as much as I like the idea of trying to trade back up in the first round if McQueen falls, I think what you're probably going to see is the Flyers part with a roster player and one or both of the Colorado and Edmonton picks to get a player that's going to help them try to make the playoffs this year. Is it possible that they could look to trade the Colorado pick or the Edmonton pick for a 2026 first-round pick with the thought that things break the right way, maybe that pick ends up being higher. Maybe that pick ends up being 16 next year or something. Sure, it's possible. I don't know. Let's see. Trevston93 says the NHL did release the number combos. I didn't see that, but Matthew's still very upset that knowing what number we needed. I get it. Let's see. Matthew says, grab McQueen with the Colorado pick. I'd love it. Sean C. says the Flyers finished in a spot where getting knocked down twice still gets them a seemingly solid player. Disappointing, but the sky is not following. This is it. This is it, friends. I'm also going to note, okay, because many of you know that I happen to be one of the hosts of So the Goalie, the Only Flyers podcast. I have been yelling and arguing with one of my co-hosts. He's been with me, I think, maybe not as vocally. He's seen the light for quite a while. And one of them has been like, oh, it doesn't matter if you finish fourth. It doesn't matter if you finish sixth. What the hell does it matter in the draft lottery? And I keep saying, because you need to make sure you finish somewhere in the top six. Because if you don't finish somewhere in the top six, or it's in the top four, in the lottery, you could fall out of the top six. And here we are. They got their worst case scenario, fall in 2 spots, and they still pick in that top tier. We're okay. JToxic49 asks, why does San Jose only get to only drop 1 spot, but we drop 2? Okay, good question. San Jose had the best odds of getting the number 1 overall pick, right? So they had the worst record. They had the highest percentage chance. They had the fewest points in the season, right? The Islanders winning the number 1 overall pick jumped San Jose. So San Jose falls from 1 to 2. When they did the redraft, the second draft for the number 2 overall pick, Utah jumped 10 spots up to number 4, but the max they can jump is 10 spots. So Utah technically won the lottery for the number 2 overall pick, but because the league limits you to only being able to move up 10 spots, they move up to number 4. So any team who finished, I guess, above that line, so it's San Jose and it's Chicago, those 2 teams did not get jumped. Because Utah has to take the 4th pick instead of the 2nd, San Jose and Chicago only moved down 1. Utah did not jump them. They're not allowed by league rules to move up. What would that have been? 12 spots. They had to stop at 10. Unfortunately, the Flyers, and if you're a Predators fan watching this for whatever reason, unfortunately for your team as well, you move down. But instead of getting jumped by a fellow like top 6 team, you got jumped by a team that moved up 10 spots. Okay. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, I will try to explain it a different way. Let's see. Lawrence Fine asks, why don't they do a worst to first and skip the lottery? Why do they have to complicate it? They don't want teams to tank. That's the simple reason, right? That's it. They don't want teams to tank. I'll also point out the fact that, your chance of getting the number 1 overall pick, even as the worst team in hockey, is about 1 in 4. It's a 25.5% chance. They are actively trying to do whatever it takes to prevent teams from tanking in a way where they know if they finish with the fewest points, they'll get the number 1 overall pick. That's why virtually every league does it the same way, where there's a draft lottery. Now, the percentages are different, and if you look at this versus the NBA, the percentage chances are different. But that's why. They want to at least have the plausible deniability that they don't support tanking. And in fact, the Islanders moving up like they did, and even Utah moving up like they did, kind of gives some credence to that idea. Let's see. Hearts 4201 says, thank God they lost the last game in Buffalo. If they'd have won, they'd be picking 9th. There. We have some silver lining. We have a silver lining in this. And that is correct. Because, let's see, the Flyers would have had 78 points, which would have put them, would that have been 8th? Let's see, that would have, oh no, Buffalo, because Buffalo would have had fewer points. Yes, the Flyers would have been picking 9th. So that is a great point by Hearts. Yes, the Flyers would have picked 9th in the draft had they beaten Buffalo. Woof. Okay. PB&J says they 100% rigged it. No one can tell me different. I don't know if you mean now or if you mean behind closed doors. I'm very behind on the comments, so not totally sure. Sean C says the 10 spots max thing was put into effect after the Oilers got 4 straight number 1 overall picks. Matthew Denian, new to the channel, I think, says Caleb Denoy, not a bad pick at 6. Also, maybe watch McQueen if he drops. Trade up for him. That's where I'm at right now. I'm gonna manifest it. Gonna keep manifesting it. PB&J says Flyers need one more tank season. They will not. They're not going to do that. If you at any point try to convince yourself that the Flyers are going to tank for Gavin McKenna, get that out of your head. The only way it's going to happen is if they go through a ton of injuries. That's it. They're not looking to race to the bottom next year. Andrew Fawcett says, I really hope we don't have to go through this next year. I agree with that, by the way. Matthew Stevens says, Flyers should ride Fedotov next season. Mr. Bone99 says, the Sharks are open for trading that second-round pick. Or maybe he means the second overall pick. I can't imagine. I don't know why you would. Let's see. Chris Freed says, Flyers following the Sixers model of picking the injured prospect will end as well as the Sixers process did. Julian C says they have to package picks and move up. Mr. Bo99 says Dickinson, Celebrini, Smith, Misa just crowned San Jose now. They'll have a really good core. There's no doubt of that. They will have a very good core. Tony Knockers over on YouTube says Denoye is a great center and the Flyers already have his brother. We will see between now and then. Let's see. Joe Papel says picking injured guys gets you injured, or picking injured guys gets you injured guys. Never a good starting point. Michael D'Angelo says keep our goalies, suck next year. They're just not going to, guys. They're not. Don't get your hopes up for that when it isn't going to happen. Matthew Denian says take Denoye at 6, then try to trade up for McQueen. If we get both of them, we get a decent shot at one of them paying off at the center position. I don't hate that idea. Again, I really do think that if McQueen falls, that is the ballsy pick. That is the ballsy choice, the ballsy strategy that maybe makes you a team that, like, when you look back on it, you say, yo, the Flyers got a real stud at number 6, but how about the value they got at McQueen at, like, 18, whatever it ends up being. Andrew Fawcett says at 6, take the best player available regardless of position. Sorry, it's the way they have to play it. Let's see. Nabil Raymond, there we go, says, how important was that Buffalo loss, LMAO, pick 9 versus 6? We still get a stud in a top 7 draft. Nabil, correct. Let's see. David Vaughn says, you and the 6'5" crap. Dude has a bad back. What the fuck? Listen, David. Listen here, David. All right? Hold your horses here, David. 6'5". Legitimate frame. Could be a stud 1C. You don't know. I'll also put, you know what, David? Hold on a second. Let me throw something back at you, fella. Okay? I happen to remember a center, a 1C, a guy who was drafted to be the backbone, pun intended, of the Buffalo Sabres. And I can remember that guy needing a very tricky surgery. And I can remember going on Snow the Goalie and saying, boy, I'd move heaven and earth to bring Jack Eichel in. I would. I'd give Buffalo whatever they want because he's still a game-changing player. And I remember some people criticizing the idea at the time. Oh, you never know. It's an experimental procedure. You don't know how. He goes out to Vegas. Now, in fairness, Vegas is a much better team than the Flyers have been. Goes out to Vegas, wins a cup. Back injuries suck. There's no getting around it. Modern medicine continues to get better. If you are a team that watches this guy fall and you believe that based on the medical reports you've gotten, there's a very good chance or a better than not chance that he's going to rebound and be okay, you certainly take a swing on that. It's certainly better than, I don't know, many picks that you're going to make at the end of the first round, which is really a crapshoot, or of the 4 second-round picks you have, which are also a crapshoot. Let's see. Landro says Misa might not even be a center. Danny Longo over on YouTube says draft McQueen and watch him be hurt most of the season. Again, I don't think they'll take him at 6. I think it's just you keep an eye on it if he falls. Landros2 says Eklund has Forsberg vibes with his vision, but he's a winger, as is Martone. Yukon 456 with some positivity says Hagen's falling to us. If that happens, it's great value at number 6. Let's see. Philly Sports Experts is very upset with how this worked out. KW1323 says draft the best player available. Philly Sports Expert says it's rigged. Expansion team and New York team. Says miss out on talent again. Julian C says just package picks, move up. They have 10 picks. They have 7 in the first 2 rounds, so it's a lot. Let's see. I mentioned Rubtsov. Yeah, Rubtsov was not good. All right, let me see. I got to try to jump around here a little bit. Messiah says Phantoms can probably beat the Flyers. That's maybe not as outlandish as you might think. Catholic Nono says getting a top 6 player is perfectly fine. Chill out and trust Danny. I think that's fine. David Vaughn says you're delusional thinking this is a playoff team. David, do me a favor. I want you to bookmark this. I want you to put the timestamp from this episode. I want you to clip it or find somebody who can. And I want you to revisit this with me. Not this time next year, because I'm not thinking the Flyers are going to get to the second round of the playoffs. But yeah, let's check back in like next March, April. Let's just check in. Barring cataclysmic injuries, okay? Like if half the team ends up on IR, then fine. But if it's a healthy team, they're probably going to make the playoffs next year. This Eastern Conference sucked this year, okay? There was so much parity in this conference this year. And yeah, there are going to be teams that are going to get better, but come on now. Let's see. Flyers Purgatory, pointing out what some others have. If they had won the Buffalo game, they'd be picking 9th right now. That's why losing these games down the stretch was important. Trevsta asks, thoughts on Hudson, Celebrini, and Wolf as Calder nominees? It pisses me off. It drives me insane. Mishkov should have been a finalist. It is absolute bullshit that he wasn't. 63 points. Had more multi-goal games than anyone. I think it's just absolutely nonsense. Let's see. Dolphins, USMNT, Flyers, Red Sox says, we are so cooked. Oh, boy. Raymond Supper says, hiring a high-profile coach won't matter if goalie is not fixed. I agree. Like that's what they're going to go out and get a goalie. I don't know how good that goalie is going to be, but they're going to go after a goalie this offseason. Let's see. Yukon 456 says, Utah won a whole 7 games more than us and is picking above us. The max move up should be 3. Let's see. E. Smith 22 says, all I wanted was for them to not fall this far. Wanted one of those top 5. It's fair. Matthew Stevens says, by the way, during the Patrick draft, our scouts said to draft Makar. Hextall didn't listen. That is incorrect. That has been incorrectly reported by some people. It was Heiskanen. Heiskanen is the one that they wanted. It was not Makar. And there were some that wanted Pettersson. Makar was not the second most. Bobby Clark went onto a podcast like a year or 2 ago, said Makar, because Makar is the best defenseman, and probably wanted it to sound like the Flyers scouts and everything were just phenomenal, and that Hextall was a total boob, which he was, but it was Makar. Let's see. Ryan Reese says, Utah doesn't need a top 5 pick again. They need NHL talent now, but they will still pick at 5 because they're a terribly run organization. And we'll find out. Let's see. There's a bunch of back and forth over here. Let's see if there's anything else that we want to get to before we wrap it up here. Daniel Mullane says, fun fact, Flyers were also 1 ball away from McDavid in 2015. Daniel, we've been trying to live in a little bit of positivity tonight. At least they can get McDavid next year in free agency, so that's a positive. Good positive. Blue Rules 26 asks if we talked about Calder Trophy finalists. We did. Let's see, anything else? CMZ says, yeah, I'm probably done with hockey for a little bit after that. What the fuck did I just witness? You witnessed a draft lottery. Let's see. Sloppy Joe says, I'd trade York and one of the late firsts to move up to 10 or 15. I don't think that York and like pick 23 or whatever gets you 12 or 13 spots up. But who knows? Let's see. Sean C says, also worth noting that had the Flyers won one of the last 2 games, they'd be picking 9th. Correct. K Fergie 21 over on YouTube asks, do you want the team to make the playoffs next year? That means the next 8 years will be awful. The talent in the pipeline can't get us there. It's not about what I want. It's about what I'm very confident this organization believes is what they're going to do. They're going to try to make the playoffs next year. I'm just telling you, don't get your hopes up that the Flyers are going to tank for Gavin McKenna. It's not going to happen. That's it. Here's the thing, right? Gavin McKenna might be a generational talent. Even if you finish with the worst record in hockey, you have a 25.5% chance of getting him. Now, I am very much a believer that you want to finish as low as you can to insulate yourself from getting jumped twice. But Gavin McKenna, barring some kind of cataclysmic injury or something, will be the number 1 overall pick. Do you tank another season for a 1 in 4 chance of getting that guy? And if so, and I have no idea what the prospects are for next year outside of McKenna. If it's a huge drop-off to number 2, which you would assume it probably will be if McKenna is really generational, is that worth burning another year? The Flyers are, kind of falling out of relevancy to some extent. It's going to be really, really hard for them to tank another season and not lose even more people. They should have enough with whoever this pick ends up being, although they probably won't be on the team to start coming out of camp in the summer, into the fall. They have more guys in the pipeline right now that do look like they could be actual contributors at the NHL level than they have at any point that I can remember in the last decade plus. Again, make of that what you will. There are very good free agents coming up in 2026. The cap is going up, and the Flyers are going to shed a lot of money. If there's ever a time to go after free agents, it's going to be 2026. The trade market might get a little bit interesting. Draft day might get a little bit interesting. Let's see. eSmith22 says, did they really need to take a 3-minute timeout before that last ball? Convinced myself we were winning those few minutes. I'm sorry. I am. Let's see. Reed DeFord says, I was totally expecting the hockey gods to reward the Pens tonight, so at least that didn't happen. That is correct. B-Rad is Rad says Matthew Tkachuk was picked 6th. Aha, there you go. So not all doom and gloom. See? Try to find a little bit of positivity. You're going to drive yourselves nuts. All right? Yukon456 really living in positivity. Fedotov got better as the season went on. He didn't play. I love the Iron Giant, but it was not a great season. Adam Glickus says, Danny B needs to get creative and get to work. This is probably the most consequential offseason in decades. This front office knows how important it is. They can't screw this up. They need to nail this. They have to nail it with the coaching hire. They need to nail it at the draft. They need to nail it in the trade market. Any free agents that are available, they're going to have to get creative. Dave Wallace says, can't wait to draft our second-line center. One day we will have a 1C again. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Olson Math, 3141 says, trade York and Edmonton's first to move up for McQueen. Listen, everybody just remember that as a bunch of people who talk into microphones and write stories, as they now start to look at the draft, and they have not been saying this to this point, I just want you to remember who has been talking about McQueen falling and who has been talking about the importance of maintaining the flexibility to potentially go up and get that guy. Because this is what happens. Sometimes the ideas get put out there, and then some of the people, they go and they take them and try to make them their own. They make them their own, don't they, folks? Let's see. Sean C. says, Flyer hater Craig Button called the Flyers picking Lachenko for at least a month. Keep an eye out for his mock draft. Fair. Cleats R6. That's a new name here on the channel. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Thank you. Says, time for some offer sheets. No 1C coming from this draft. Here's the thing that kills me, right? Wyatt Johnston was the guy that I wanted the Flyers to get. I wanted them to back up the Brinks truck for Wyatt Johnston. And I think he got $8.5 million. Like, I would have gone over that. At his age, 1C potential, that was the player. That was the guy to back up the Brinks truck for, make it really painful for Dallas, and especially with them having to sign Rantanen. That to me was the guy. And he's off the board, which sucks. Could Danny Briere look to sign an offer sheet? Could he look to get an RFA to come in here? It's entirely possible. We'll see how it works. Or if it does, if it works at all. Let's see. Wizards Tap says Martone, or I don't know what that is. Mutka? Who is this? Who is this person you are speaking? Oh, okay. Murtka. Okay. Got it. The defenseman. Got it. Okay. Got it. That might be a little bit of a stretch. And I don't know I can't imagine Martone's going to fall that far. But maybe. Who knows? Let's see. Here's another name. AK40 Kevin says, I said a few weeks ago that fans wouldn't be devastated if they fell to 6th, but for some reason that was devastating. Maybe the fact that they were close to 1st, but that was bad. I hear you. Cleatsar6 says, if McQueen falls to 13 to 15, then trade up for sure. No reason to take at 6 when you can get a middle sixer. Timpo717 says, look at the bright side. Had they beaten Buffalo, they'd be picking at 9. Correct. John Rosado asks, who would you take at 6? I really hope Higgins falls. If Hagen or Frondel somehow fall to 6, that's the guy. I need to do some research into Denoye. I just don't know enough about the player. I'll have to, I think on this show, I will actually get some people who have been watching these guys all year to come on and offer some sage wisdom about these players. Because I have not been following them all year, and I'm not going to lie to you and act like I have. John Wolf says, I hope the Sabres trade their 9th overall pick. I don't know why they would, though. CMC says, literal nightmare scenario tonight. I can't believe it. I know. Brighton Condor says, keep the 6th overall pick and one of the Colorado Edmonton first. Trade other draft picks for Isaac Howard. I did talk about that on the show last Friday and again earlier today. This is the second show of the day, about going after Isaac Howard. I think the Flyers are very much going to be in the market for Isaac Howard, who is incredibly unlikely to sign in Tampa. Let's see. Cleatsar6 says, let's just focus the anger on Mishkov Calder snub. It'll make the career third-line center we draft not matter. It is bullshit that Mishkov's not a finalist. I can't believe it. Landro says, Alex Bump is a legit prospect, as is Bonk and Lashenko. Add a couple guys in the draft. It's not all doom and gloom. It's a positive way to look at it. I don't think you're totally off base. CB123 asks, will the Flyers take a risk on McQueen if he falls to them? No. I don't think they'll take him at 6. I think you just wait to see if he falls much farther. Mark Dodge says, trade the pick. For what? Okay, the Flyers are going to draft at 6. What are you trading the 6th overall pick for? What gets you going? Let me know. Bus Camper says, outside of the Islanders at 1, the Flyers are the second Eastern Conference team to pick. 2 through 5 are Western teams. Correct. Catholic Nono says, choosing the right coach is the first big decision. The goalie Briere brings in is the second. The draft pick is 3rd. That in terms of what's going to matter the most, that's probably right. I could maybe make the case that the goalie is even more important, because if you don't address that position, it doesn't matter who the coach is or what the system is. We saw it this year. Let's see. Video guy Amadeo says, now they'll hire Taka to ruin my life. It's okay. It's okay. Lawrence Fine, I love this, though. Says, we did get Mishkov at 7, but that's an anomaly. Correct. There is nobody at the top of this draft who would have the anti-Russian bias against them that would fall. So you have that. Timpo717 says, take one of Hagen's, Frondel, Denoye, or O'Brien at 6. It's likely that at least one of them will be there. Amy says, so you tank next year and then get jumped like tonight? No. Yeah, so Amy's anti-tank. I am too. I just don't see it. Troll Jones says, I hear the Russian goalie we have is legit. If you're talking about Zavragin, you're right. Zavragin looked incredible in the KHL, and especially as young as he is, to have the success that he did, it could be a massive get for this organization. All that said, he's not coming over anytime soon, but he looks legit. He might be their best goalie prospect in... I think that right now, I'll say this. I think that based on the year that Zavragin had in the KHL, I think he's a better prospect. Based on the success he had in that league at his age, I'd say he is even a better prospect at goal, like in net, than Carter Hart was. And Hart was your best prospect in net in a decade, or at least since Bobrovsky. Yeah. Could Zavragin be as good as Bobrovsky, win a Vezina? Who the hell knows? Hopefully, if they do have a guy who can win a Vezina, they don't trade him away, or they don't sign a big money goalie and then trade away the young guy because the big money guy isn't willing to take the young guy under his wing. Not that that's happened here before. It did. Let's see. Troll Jones says, I felt like watching the lottery was like Chinese geometry. Adam Glikas asks, Russ, do you think the Four Nations not only was a positive, but even after the first round, Four Nations storylines are still being talked about? I think Four Nations was a really big positive. I think the only people that didn't enjoy it or ultimately felt like it wasn't worth it were the ones that had players that sustained injuries. And in fairness, like, you should be upset if that happens. But I think that overall, like, it was a good thing for the league. It was a good thing for the sport. So I think it was good. I do. Let's see. Joe Papel asks, hey, Russ, how come you don't wave goodbye at the end of your streams anymore? Fine. I'll wave just for you at the end of this one. I also have like an outro video now, so I don't know. It's like kind of, I don't know. Joe, I'll bring back the hand wave. I didn't know that was going to make anybody feel some sort of way. Dersh says, I don't trust anything named O'Brien in a sweater. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. eSmith22 says, go get me a William Nylander. Because good guy, this guy is unreal. Listen, Marner could end up being available as well. Uh-oh. Did we finally lose the camera? No, that was like the Flash. Mitch Marner. Could that be a name that you want to see the Flyers go after? Maybe. Dave Wallace asks, they still tight-lipped on Bjarnason? Yep. Correct. Let's see. Here you go. Philly fan says, Mishkov had 48 primary points. Celebrini had 43. Hudson had 31. Correct. All right. Ant DeGraz says, offer sheet McTavish, pick BPA at 6, or get Zegras and Gibson. I don't think they're going to go after Zegras. From what I've heard over the last year or so, the asking price on Zegras has just been insane. And I think that there are a lot of teams wondering whether or not he's ever going to get to the ceiling that people thought he would. So make of that what you will. Aaron Fraley says, thoughts on trading back or trying to trade up? I don't think they'll trade back. I don't think anyone's going to trade back in the top 6. Utah is an interesting thing. We'll break this down over the next few weeks. Utah could look at this as like found money. And if they get to, like, if Utah ends up on the clock and they say, listen, there are 3 guys that we'd be happy with, and the Flyers come to you with like an offer of number 6 plus another first round pick and something else, at that point, you probably consider it if you're Utah. But I think they're the only one because they had the 10 spot jump. Angelo Masso says, finishing 4th was so important. Guaranteed one of Hagens, Martone, Frondel, or Denoye. Would be psyched to get any of those guys. B-Rad is Rat says, thanks for sticking with us. No problem. That's what I'm here for. Not just the good looks and the boyish charm. Although the good looks, if there are good looks here, they did not come across when I got my real ID today. It is a horrible picture. But in fairness, the guy next to me, like, got 4 or 5 pictures taken, and I just... Listen, I'm vain to some extent, but, like, I'm not asking the guy to take 4 or 5 pictures of me at the photo license thing, but I got my real ID, and now I feel awesome. Now I don't have to take my passport on the trip out of state. So that's fun. Let's see. Cleatsar6 says, with no Johnston anymore, would you like to see a McTavish or a Bork offer sheet? I want Briere to cause mayhem. I want Briere to cause all kinds of issues. That's what I would like to see. I want Briere to rock the boat. I want him to be a chaos agent this offseason. I want teams to have to look over their shoulder. The same way that we saw the behind-the-scenes stuff that made it look like NFL GMs are afraid to trade with Howie Roseman now, I want that to be what happens with I want Danny Briere to kick somebody's ass so bad in a trade that that's what happens. I want him to get a reputation for winning trades so much. We're going to win so many trades. You're going to be so sick of winning. How would Danny say that? Because he's French-Canadian, so he can't. What would a Quebecois accent sound like on Trump? Hold on, let me think. It's like this, but you have to. And you have the Trump. There we go. I got it. All right, here we go. This is not good. This is not good. I shouldn't do it. I should. What we are going to do, believe me, it is going to be so great. And we're going to say we are going to win so many trades. It is going to be incredible, believe me. Absolument. We are going to, first of all, we are going to take the trades and we are going to take the picks and we are going to put in the picks and we're also going to eat the poutine. We love the poutine, don't we, folks? And we are also going to put in the picks and we're going to have a great team. And the people are going to say, what a great team. I never thought the Flyers would win this much, but they are winning. They are winning so bigly. Gagner, Gagner means to win. We also had Simon Gagner. He was a great player for the Flyers, but they did not win a cup. All right, I'm done. That was too much. Okay, let's go back over here. We didn't lose viewers during the French-Canadian Trump rant, so I guess that's good. I think that's a good sign. Let's see. Philly fan says, would you trade back for a 7-12 for their first next year and hope you get a good lottery luck from a team that sucks next year? Get McKenna with someone else's pick? No. Unless you really hate who's available at 6. Now, if you're saying trade back from 6 to 7 because Denoye falls and you're convinced that, whoever's... okay, play this one out really quickly. That's not going to happen, right? Boston is not going to trade you their first next year just to move up and get, Eklund or something. That doesn't make sense. I wouldn't move back 2 or 3 spots. No. I think that's where the city would light itself on fire. I think that's where fans would lose their shit. Let's see. JH says, good thing they finished 4th. Imagine if they finished 6th. As other people have been pointing out, imagine if they had beaten Buffalo at the end of the season. They would have picked 9th with the same kind of order working out. Philly fan says, does Chicago do the pick 3 for 6 in TK? No. I don't think so. With the amount of money that's on that contract, I don't see it. I don't see it. Pacino Alex says, honestly, who would they even pick at 8? Another winger. I have no clue. No idea. Antigraz says, Briere can be aggressive because his job is safe at the moment. Time to put guys who are on the hot seat to the test. Correct. Cleatsar6 says, Danny B making every other GM uncomfortable is a dream. It was called Pepe Le Pew. Let's see. I think that's probably it. It sounds like my kid's foot doctor. What the hell? We've fallen apart in this thing. French-Canadian Trump. So June Worshipper says, French-Canadian Trump can't hurt you. He doesn't exist. French-Canadian Trump. And it was so great. How, you have to have the voice. The voice is here, but a little bit of the French accent. Je ne sais pas. Qu'est-ce que pour dire? Je ne sais pas. We are going to gagner. Yeah, you know what? It went a little bit too Pepe Le Pew. I'll work on that. French-Canadian Trump. We'll get there someday. Yeah. Anyway, I think I'm good for now. Angela with a good idea here, though. Martone at 6. I don't think he's going to fall there, but Martone at 6. Trade for Rossi. That could be interesting. Yeah. There we go. I think we're good for the night. Across X, Facebook, and YouTube, we have gone to about the 1,300 viewer mark tonight, which is wild. But I do want to thank everybody who joined me. If you're new to the channel, if you're new to this show, it happens every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It traditionally has happened at 8:30 a.m., but I've started to move it to the afternoons just to test things out. We've been leaning a little bit more into hockey. Sometimes we talk basketball. Sometimes we talk football. Sometimes we even get a little bit of union soccer in. There are national news stories, national sports stories. There are mostly Philadelphia sports stories. Sometimes we talk about things that are going on in the general Philadelphia area just for fun. But if you're new, do me a favor, like the video, share the video, subscribe. Subscribing to the channel is great. We just crossed over 1,000 subscribers a couple nights ago, which is really cool. Want to keep growing the channel. If you enjoyed this show, seriously, like the video, share the video, subscribe. It does make a really big difference. And I will be back on Wednesday. If you're, I don't know, if this, for some reason, if you're like, oh, this was nice, but I wish I had even more stuff to talk about, I did drop an episode earlier in the day, episode 96. We talked about the Game 7s that happened over the weekend. We talked about James Harden essentially puking all over himself in another Game 7 against the Nuggets. So we did get some NBA playoffs in. We had a lot of hockey talk. It's just been wild stuff. JH is correct here, by the way. It says, I love how it's just whenever. Turn on the notifications. That's correct. So Landry says, I've been missing the afternoon starts. I miss the mornings, but I get it, yeah. I mean, the viewer numbers have just been better in the afternoon. That really is just as simple as it is. So we'll see. Anyway, thank you for finding this show on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Again, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will talk to all of you on Wednesday here on the Russ Joy Show. But until then, I have been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. I'll talk to you all on Wednesday. Don't forget, this is also available in podcast apps, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music. And now for Joe Papel, who asked for it specifically, I shall bid you adieu for the night. Bonsoir, mes amis. And I will give you the requested wave, as Joe Papel asks. So have a great night, everybody. Flyers, pick number 6. It's going to be okay. We'll break it down for the next few weeks, or we'll just have a breakdown, a mental breakdown. But I don't want to do that, so we'll keep it positive. Have a great night, everybody. Talk to all of you Wednesday here on The Russ Joy Show.